Hi, everybody. Beautiful sight, beautiful day on the bay. So, I'm reproducing here a mirror of uh, yesterday's Women Atheists Unload program, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show
Hello.
today.
Hey.
We've
Hello,
got
Internet Land.
Alma and Helen and Kara. Hey, what are we talking about today?
Well, today
Well,
we're talking about the Venn diagram between religion, misogyny, and, well, it's kind of a circle.
All right,
close to a
that sounds
circle.
like a great big topic, but just to get things started, I came across a study that was done by an economics professor at the University of Vermont. She's an economist. I believe she's emerita at this point. It was a 2011 study. Stephanie Seguino. That it's a study in economics, and it's a statistical study based on a database of 200,000 interviews that a World Economic Group put together back in over a wide course of years. And Stephanie broke down the statistics therein, and the title of the study is Help or Hindrance? Religion's Impact on Gender Inequality. And one of the key findings is, to quote, of greater significance, however, is the finding that once we control for the individual's religion, we find that religiosity itself, the intensity of religious belief and the frequency of religious participation, is consistently negatively correlated with gender attitudes and outcomes. And as we talk about this topic, while we're all, I assume, pretty much coming from out of a Christian tradition, living in, as the Christian nationalists pejoratively call it, a Christian nation, we tend to focus on our own system of beliefs, but religious beliefs, it seems like worldwide, religious beliefs are fundamentally a system of control, and usually they're focused on controlling women's roles in raising children, in both reproductively and in so many senses, in the workplace, etc. And it's not limited to Christianity itself. So with that in mind, let's start off with Alma. I think you have something about a very particular thing.
Yeah. Well, regarding Christianity, one of the things that we have found more is like the fundamentalist thinking that the woman belongs in the house, and not only that, but also her body belongs to the husband. And this is how we end up with something like this, with the trad wife trend. One of the proponents of this is, well, this person, I don't even like to say her name, but she's one of the people that is always saying stuff like this. If you can read what it says in there, it says, so a woman's husband wanted sex with her, but she said no. She woke up in the middle of the night and he was having sex with her. What? She asked me if this was marital rape. Mm-hmm. Yes, it was.
Yes.
It was the first time he had
Yes.
done it.
Definitely.
And he
Okay.
has never physically abusive towards her. I told her, no, I don't even think like that. Ugh. So she is condoning behavior like this, and she even has a Bible verse about it. We aren't to deprive our husbands sexually, only physically abusive husbands right, their wives, and if he wakes up to have sex with you, go for it. Oh, that's awesome. It doesn't always need to be planned, be spontaneous sometimes. So you don't even have the choice to say no
Well,
at
and
any
you
But
know,
even,
I'm noticing even in her second paragraph here where she's explaining how you should be spontaneous sometimes, she's not actually describing what the person said happened. The person who
Mm-hmm.
wrote into her apparently said that they woke up in the middle of the night after having told their husband no, and he was having sex with her. He didn't wake her up and ask her again. But that
Mm-hmm.
seems to be what this person is suggesting in the second paragraph. Like she's making light of it and trying to shift what happened to make it sound like something different than what it was, than what she's even admitting it was.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two very different things. Saying no and then the person doing it anyway versus waking up in the middle of the night and someone asking and then you say yes. Those are not even remotely the same. And the fact that she can't tell the difference between those two scenarios makes me think that she's either being intentionally dishonest or is simply not understanding the concept of consent or does not care what that means.
And that she has to look for a Bible verse to
well,
justify
even the
the
Bible verse
overturning of
doesn't.
consent. I mean,
But even the Bible verse doesn't even say that he has that right, because even do not deprive one another except perhaps by agreement for a limited time. So she said no at the time, and he didn't force himself on her then. So they had made. I don't know the situation, but I would say that is still not a reason for him to take advantage of her when she told him no before. So this is not
Right.
even, from
it's
the Bible verse, it's not condoning it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a
it's
really good point too,
Yeah.
Helen, that people can make Bible verses say whatever they want them to, and sometimes it seems to be of very little relevance whether that is actually what the passage says. It's almost like putting a citation after their opinion, like we would do if you had to write a paper in school and they said cite your sources. If you can just put a Bible verse at the end of your sentence, all of a sudden you can say, I'm right now. No one can argue with me. God said this, regardless of what the passage even actually
Right.
said or meant.
absolutely
It's silly.
absolutely right. And to take the Treadwife's interpretation, only physically abusive husbands rape their wives. I
What
mean,
does she
what about psychologically abusive husbands? What about husbands who basically don't take no for an answer? What about husbands that whose mission seems to be to dominate? And you need a Bible verse to justify your own warped sense of what is moral in any particular situation. That's just appalling.
It really is. And I mean, I would argue that sexually assaulting your spouse is definitionally physically abusing them, among other things. So that sentence doesn't even make sense to me.
Well, and the thing that I'm only physically abusive husbands rape their wives. What does she think rape is?
Right.
Is it
Right.
isn't it physical abuse?
Yes, that seems to be kind
So
of a meaningless
pick
statement
a
there.
lane, because I'm just the mental gymnastics. I always say this, but the mental gymnastics that you have to do to say that rape is not physical abuse is nuts, and that only, and also that that's very disgusting and very dismissive of people that have been sexually abused and in and out of marriage, because just because your husband or boyfriend or partner, regardless of gender, didn't physically hit you, being sexually assaulted in any form or manner where you did not, you said no, and you made a clear boundary, and someone violates that boundary, doesn't, even if you're married to them or in a committed relationship, does not give them the right to do that to you. And I don't, it just grosses me out. It's terrible. It's terrible. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, and this is what I think is so concerning about some of
Yeah.
these trad wives and these
Mm.
trends that are really promoting this level of, I guess, social conservatism, you could call it. I mean, I think
Yeah.
this goes way beyond social conservatism. This is into some dark stuff, but it's promoting a lifestyle that is ignoring the legal protections that have been made over the last several decades for protecting women from being physically assaulted and abused, not to mention, their economic status and educational attainment and everything else like that. But this person probably does remember a time when there was no such thing as marital rape, or rather, it was not illegal in the United States before the 1970s. That was not a crime. And I think it wasn't until 1993 when it was finally made illegal in every state in the US. Now, I know sometimes we're behind some of the other places in the world, so I don't know what the case may be in some other nations. But in the United States, the person who made this post was presumably alive and remembers a time when that was legal and that concept really wasn't a thing that anyone worried about. And it's those kind of old-fashioned traditional values that some of these people are trying to harken back to, and that is pretty gross if you think about it. This isn't just, oh, we're going to be biblical and we're going to be cute and old-fashioned looking and all that. No, you're walking back in time to when legal protections didn't exist for women to not get assaulted by their family members. That's a problem.
Like I love 1950s style, but I don't want to live in the 1950s. And I think we
Right.
have to have that clear distinction that because there are people that love the aesthetic of those times. I do too. But I don't want to go back where I didn't have any rights, that we're kind of heading in that direction anyway. but that's because we progress. We're like, no, we don't want to hold on to these traditional values because they don't serve in a modern society anymore. And even if you're a religious woman, you shouldn't be wanting to adapt to a biblical worldview because it doesn't serve you anymore. And I think that, especially online with these, with the trad wives, is that they misunderstand feminism. They don't understand that it's about equality, and that if you, doesn't mean like, you have to start, going to marches and, become, pro-choice or anything like that. You can have your opinion, but the idea is that your voice is the same as your husband's. You have the ability to stand up for what you want and what you don't want, and care and speak up and say, I don't think this is fair. I don't want to have sex when I don't want to have sex. At its simplest form, that the man's word is not authority. And they miss that because, if you have if you're in one of these Christian marriages and you have a very loving partner, you're not facing that to maybe on a certain level you are, but not as extreme as like some people where their husbands are abusive and they infantilize. They make their wives feel like children, and they don't let them have a voice, and like, I'm the authority. And that's the difference, is that you can be in a biblical marriage but still have equal say versus other marriages where you are a second-class citizen in your own home.
So
Right.
it's interesting, speaking of traditional roles, It seems like they're cross-cultural in a lot of ways, because in the study I referred to earlier, the questions that were used to correlate religious belief, religious attendance, and that sort of thing to the status of women in a society were really quite interesting. First, agree or disagree. A woman needs children in order to be fulfilled.
Are you asking
Approve of-
us? I'm going to
no,
go with
I'm just-
disagree.
Right. I think we'll all disagree with most of these things, or take a different tack. Do you approve of a woman being a single parent? A working mother can establish a warm, secure a relationship with children as a mother who does not work. Agree or disagree? Can abortion or divorce be justified always, never be justified, or something in between? When jobs are scarce, men should have more right to a job than women. It's a problem if women have more income than the husband. On the whole, men make better political leaders than women do. A university education is more important for a boy than a girl. And so many of these things correlate so closely with religious belief that you have to sit and wonder. Or maybe not even wonder. You have to sort of propose that perhaps there is this correlation is, that religion is fundamental in rearing and raising up both boys and girls, men and women, to believe in things that hold back progress and gender equality throughout the society, to its detriment. Thoughts?
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. And I think those are both important pieces of it. I was looking at another article earlier today as well from Current Opinion in Psychology called Sexual Prejudice, Sexism, and Religion by Ettingoff and Levifor. And I'm sorry if I butchered those names, from 2020. That's along the same lines as the one that you were looking at, Stephanie, that basically does say there's kind of two pieces here. Religiosity or religiousness strongly correlates with sexism and sexual prejudice, but also something that strongly correlates with religiousness, especially that type of religious belief, is social conservatism, and these beliefs that social hierarchies need to be maintained, and they need to be the strict social hierarchies that harken back to some of these pre-modern, very patriarchal cultural practices that we find in the holy books, described, in the lifestyles of the people in the Bible, in the Quran, in the Torah, that these are not just religious beliefs, but social and cultural customs that people have picked up and want to try and maintain, even though, as I think Helen mentioned earlier on, these aren't currently relevant to the society that we live in. Or, well, they're relevant insofar as people are practicing them, but they come from an earlier time. And it's very interesting to me that people particularly seem to like to pick and choose the customs that have to do with preventing women from having access to things or having rights or legal protections, rather than, trying to follow all of the customs that are described, say, in the Bible. You don't see a lot of people getting real excited and wanting their politicians to do something about the fact that people eat shrimp and wear mixed fabrics. Weird that those aren't the important customs from the Bible that they want to get all excited about. It's just if it pertains to keeping women in a particular social station and keeping gay or trans or queer people in a particular social station or out of public life entirely. And it really does seem to me to be the case that religion is a great tool for people to use when they want to promote these very, very conservative beliefs and ideas that would otherwise be regarded as immoral or unethical by people in our society today. But if you can put that Bible verse after your comment, all of a sudden now, oh, I've got the moral high ground. And I find that disturbing.
I was gonna like I was on.
Oh, Stephanie, you're muted.
I was sorry.
I'm sorry, I coughed. I was gonna follow on with that. It's like there are people in society today who find these ideas, find utility in those ideas, and I gotta wonder what the hell is the utility in these ideas. And it seems to me it's a preservation of both that system of belief and the system of status and privilege that that system of belief conveys. What I can't understand is why people are altogether so willing to surrender their own status for the sake of that preservation. I mean, is it a question of cognitive dissonance? And anyway, that's just a thought. And Helen, what do you got?
Well, like I was gonna 2 points. I was doing a TikTok just this past week, and somebody commented that they asked about the wage gap, and they're asking, is it different here compared to other countries? And I said I don't know the other economic systems, in other countries, so I'm not going to comment on that. And then somebody else commented like, well, I don't think the wage gap exists, and I had to break it down why the wage gap exists, and I go, it's because of misogyny, and that comes from religion. And I started breaking down the reasons why. And because it's not just a matter of like, we're sitting here being like, oh, we want to make more money. And, it's like, no, like we can either make more money in men or we're making the same amount. I don't really fucking care. But I want to be recognized for my abilities and to making the same amount of money in the marketplace. But there's this attitude that either because a woman might want to be, if they become a mother, that they might leave their job, that their role should be in the home, that if they do become a parent, they're not going to be as productive. And this is also combination when we're talking about capitalism. So, the misogyny feeds the capitalism feeds the misogyny. and that's the thing that's also frustrating, because it's when you're trying to explain that to someone who just wants to say like, women don't work hard enough, men are more motivated. And I also pointed out too, like if we go forward and ask for like a raise or, a promotion, we're seen as pushy or bitchy, or if we get frustrated. But if a man does it, he's bold and strong and, and asking for what he wants, and then I go, you wonder why women don't speak up enough, even when they want, more position and more authority in the workplace, especially in the corporate world. That's a problem. And I don't think that people appreciate them. Women don't think that they should ask for more money, because that seems we're conditioned to be nice. We're taught to, be grateful for what is given to us. And it's also how we're socialized. And so this isn't just, a wage gap issue. This is a socialization, education, perception of roles in society as well. And also, like when I was looking over, some of like, especially the article on, the wage gap and gender identity, that this affects society as a whole, because it affects queer people, it affects people of color. There is, it's this constant otherness that happens, that you're not recognized for your abilities and your capabilities in education and experience. You're judged on outward appearance rather than, what you're capable of. Right. So, I mean, even AI generators are doing this. So, it's definitely, feeds feeds into all this type of thing of like we're putting our own ideas even into artificial intelligence of our biases, which is kind of
AI.
so,
AI is so much garbage in, garbage out. Really.
yeah, I know, but I'm just saying,
AI is a perfect. It sort of is an example of where things go when you. How do you divorce an AI from the cultural milieu of the people that wrote it? You don't. You're gonna get the prejudices reflective of the mass of the information that it's fed. It's not capable of sitting down and doing a real detailed analysis. It's just going to spout out whatever bullshit there is. You decide. We report. You decide.
Oh, there's
Here we go.
There we go. Yep.
Great.
Yeah, and there's a chart on this article too, showing how there was some progress made in recent years with kind of closing that, there it is, that
Yep.
gender pay gap. But in the last couple of decades, it's hardly budged. We've been stuck with women getting 80 to 82 cents per dollar compared to men on average for the last 20 years. Hasn't really changed at all. And, you can see prior to that, there was a big jump. From 1982 to 2002, it went from 65 cents to the dollar to 80 cents to the dollar. But since then, not really much change. And there are a lot of factors that go into that, some of which are listed there on the side.
Yeah, and that's another feature of that is the discounting of the free labor that women were expected to and often did do today, even perform when it comes to the economic impact of women's lives and what women do.
Yes,
in a
that's
society.
Getting paid to raise children, by the way. Nobody's getting paid. You're not paid to raise kids, and as a mother, I can tell you, it's a freaking hard job. So,
Yep.
And that will oftentimes be used as an excuse to justify this pay gap by saying, well, women are going to be busy with children. They're going to be absent from work more. They're going to not be able to come in because if their child is sick, they'll stay home or things like that, when really it should be the opposite. Women are raising kids and working, they're doing twice as much work. And that's not to say that fathers don't also raise kids. Many of them do. But the labor is discounted when women do it often, and then at the same time used as an excuse to pay them less when they're in the workforce, which ends up being kind of a double-edged sword.
And Jay makes an excellent point in the chat. There's a racial pay gap too. Black women are often double hit in so many different ways. And it's just, it's pernicious.
Yes, it kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier, Stephanie, with the article by The Economists, that these ways that women are disadvantaged show up in so many different aspects of life, whether it's in financial terms, from access to education and jobs and pay, to the psychological issues that were noted in the psychology article, to all of the other things that we've mentioned today. And they pile on top of all of the other disadvantages that people face that can include racism and transphobia and everything else, ableism. All of it. If you're getting hit by more than one of these things, that's a lot. That adds up to a lot. And when people like to discount it and say, oh, there's not a wage gap. Oh, there used to be a wage gap, but there's not now. Or, oh, well, it's justified. Women get paid less because they spend less time working. It's no big deal. Yes, it is a big deal. And all of these things pile one on top of the other. And that's how we end up with people who are not able to support themselves, even though they're working full-time jobs. And it's not an accident that that's happening.
And I also faced that kind of backlash when I started working when I was really young, because I will get comments like, "Oh, well, you're Mexican, so that means that you're going to start popping kids one after the other pretty soon." So, yeah, maybe not.
Yes. Yes, and people will say that doesn't happen anymore, and that's not true. I've been asked recently in a job interview, whether I was planning to have kids. Um, aside from the fact that I I don't there's a whole bunch of aside from the fact that need to happen in that conversation. Why is this happening?
Yeah, no.
It's not a conversation that could be coming up, but it absolutely is something that affects women and people who were assigned female at birth, when they're trying to get jobs. This is something that counts against them in many, many cases.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to
The question was,
put some links into the chat so that
Yeah,
people
for some
have
reason
access
it's
to.
not. You might be
Okay.
able to link them because I won't let me post in the chat. So I'm sorry.
And
I
also
was like, I
since
wanted to give you links.
I
since we were
couldn't post
talking
mine in
about
there either.
the religion and how they kind of tried to get women out of jobs, it reminded me of the story of the beer. If you remember, the beer was at first just brewed by women, and this was the depiction that they have of them. If you can just put on the screen, please. I don't know if you have ever seen this photo. What is this? For many religious people, this was a witch, right? But no, that's what they use for the women who were selling beer. And the pointy hat was just for they will be seen. And what they did is just that they started to making stuff up so they will make women out of the business, basically. Because they will have those pointy hats, the cauldrons, and the cats, because as they have grains in their home, they will need cats to get rid of rats.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So
so is
all of
this
this,
article describing the origins of what we think of today as the trope of
mhm,
a
Yep.
witch and the cauldron and the
yep,
hats and the cat? Wow, I didn't realize that was where all that came from.
yeah. And as you
So
can
it
see in
was
the
all a
article, says,
ploy to get rid of the competition that happened to be women.
Like, again, some woman come up with some good idea, and a man comes along and goes, "Hey, that's mine," and let's demonize the woman because sexism.
yeah, as you
We
can
can't have
see,
women. We can't have women making things that we enjoy.
mhm. So as you can see, it was the fundamentalist religious movement, the one that originated who preached the stricter gender norms that condemn witchcraft. So the men who were trying to reduce the competition on the beer trade accused women of female brewers of being witches. So using their cauldrons to brew magic potions instead of booze. Unfortunately, the rumors took hold. So it became dangerous for women to do this.
Wow, that is so interesting. I didn't ever realize that.
And like, what I find really interesting, because in medieval period and before then, women who had knowledge of, like, herbs and healing remedies and things like that, it all feeds into that sort of idea of women having any sort of power. The sexual power, economic power, sociological power of women was feared, because Eve ate a fruit. So, or whatever excuse they use. And so this shows again how, social, a thing that, anyone can learn to do, which, like, brew beer, and women were brewing it, and men were like, well, we want to eliminate the competition. And this has gone on in industries since for the millennia, is that if you want to chew out the competition, you villainize them. You other them. They did this, to people of color at the turn of the 20th century with makeup and other things that they had created, and made that and moved that stuff into the white industry. And
Yeah.
their accomplishments in science and things like that. So, this is just a trend of white men, using their influence and authority to push out other groups from having, any sort of economic, sociological power. And they use religion as an excuse for it. And that's the thing that is so insidious about religion, is that it's not just like, believing in made up things and taking it seriously, is that those ideas inform behavior. And if you can justify being an asshole to somebody because your sky daddy is telling you this you are better than this group, that justifies a lot of awful things. And then you get trad wives saying, terrible things on social media. It just keeps going on and on. It's almost like we can't learn to think rationally.
So it's sort of to bring the religious aspect of this back into it. Isn't it sort of, aren't we seeing religion as being a mechanism of control? And it doesn't really matter what the society is. And in societies that are dominated by the legacy of European colonialism, it's the descendants of the European colonialists. But in so many societies throughout the world, it's the gender the preference of the patriarchy over the society as a whole. So in India, for example, you'll see the same sort of divisions. In other societies, you'll see the same sorts of divisions based on a belief structure that was almost seems like it wasn't invented to do exactly that, to be used in service of those that have achieved the power to sort of eliminate any particular competition.
Yes, and it seems to work very well at doing that, and has persisted for quite some time, because presumably the people who are in power have done a really good job of maintaining their position at the top of the hierarchy. And what motivation would they have to challenge that? I mean, other than, I don't know, being a decent person and not treating other people poorly, but might be asking too much.
Yeah. There is something that one of you mentioned regarding that. Oh, Eve was the one who ate the apple and whatever, and remind me of this. I don't know if you can add it to the screen. This is the verse of the Bible of the New Testament, because people keep saying to me, "Oh, that was the Old Testament, and everything has changed now." But it says in the 11th verse, "A woman should learn in quietness and in full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not the one deceived, but the woman who was deceived and became a sinner."
This verse got quoted at me a lot when I was younger in evangelical religion, and that was used all the time to tell people not only to shut up and stop asking questions and expressing your opinion, particularly about the things we're telling you to do that are wildly inequitable, but also would be used to prevent women and people who were identified as women or forced to present as women, prevent them from ever voicing an opinion about anything. And then this is going to prevent them from also things like getting a higher education, getting access to jobs, especially if you're in a community where the highest thing you can, aspire to is some kind of work in the church. If that's the most important thing in your community is being active in your church and being in good standing in your church and having leadership in the church, you are completely barred from that. You have no position of high status that's even available to you. And if your religious community that you're in, or whatever community that you're in, also doesn't agree with women working outside of the home, then this verse is basically used to say, okay, you have zero opportunity for social advancement, none whatsoever.
Oh,
Just
but
be quiet and sit down.
but
Or-
they give an out, they give something to the women, so we cannot say that they don't give anything. It says, but women will be saved through childbearing.
Oh boy.
Oh, good.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
so
And
that's so nice.
you're excluded from a position of social responsibility, except as it relates to your husband's position. That you can
Exactly that.
the preacher's wife has lots and lots of power. As a preacher's kid, I know that's they do, but it's always in relation to the pastor. It's always in relation to the service that individual is providing to the church through her husband's role.
Well,
And
it's that whole
that happens all the time.
The woman is the neck that turns her husband's head. Like it, because there's that whole behind every great man is a woman, but which is, thank you for the acknowledgement. But like, I don't want to be the neck that turns my husband's head. I want to have my own ability to speak my fucking mind and, have some position within society and be able not to have sex, continually to have explain why sexism is bad to people. But here we are now. but that's the thing, is that this whole idea, like, well, it's basically handing over scraps. Like, well, you don't have complete power, but you have power with your husband. So, you do get a little bit of position. It's the same. Like, I know we're talking about the trial wives before, but it's the same thing. It's like this, they go on social media and they promote these awful ideas with their positions of power, because they're making money off of this type of stuff. And they're, but what they're doing is they're promoting traditional roles. And I'm like, do you know you're doing a feminism? Like, you're kind of you're going out there and you're having influence and you're spreading your word. You're spreading fucked up words, but you're doing the thing that we're like, yes, you should have an equal voice and be able to be on a platform, because according to the Bible, you're not supposed to be saying those things. We just read that quote, everybody. So keep your mouth shut and be a broodmare.
Right. It turns out there are men who also use the internet. So presumably, if you're speaking on the internet, you're teaching men as well. This seems like it would not be allowed based on the passage we just read. But of course, as we mentioned earlier, these passages were written a long time ago.
Right.
They do not actually have to do with the society that we live in now in many ways. They are completely anachronistic. That is one example of that. So this idea that you're going to adhere literally to everything that the Bible says is silly. That's not going to happen. You can't do that. And which parts are you going to adhere to? You're going to have to ignore some and not others. It simply is not possible to literally abide by everything in the Bible at once, although people will say that's what they're doing.
Well, the women that are doing this, as Helen mentioned, they are making money off the content. It's not like they're just doing it just for a hobby. No. They are actually making money, and to make this content, it's not like she only took 5 minutes that it takes the video to make. They have to record for hours. They're actually working, and one of the things that they point out is that, oh, I love to be cuddling with my babies, and they have nannies. Like even Lori, the transformed wife, she has people who takes care of her kids, and it was exposed a while ago, and she was not happy about it. But yeah, that's how she makes a living, just by saying stuff that she doesn't actually do.
Almost like they're selling some shit.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's so, because like they try to pretend that there's this ideal misogynistic view of womanhood. They're beautiful, their makeup's done, they stay in shape, they are performing what a traditional woman is supposed to look like, which okay, fine, like you do you, boo. But what's so frustrating is that they're lying. You can't have a huge social media following. You can't be posting on TikTok all the time and Instagram and the social medias and trying to build up your following and trying to raise 2 small children at the same time without help, because it's very hard because kids are little destructive machines. It just, you can't, because parenting is a full-time job, and that there's a reason why it takes a village, because kids are a lot of work. And so they pretend that they're doing all this sort of great sort of traditional wife stuff, but it's a falsehood. And then the women that follow these people, they don't feel like they're meeting up to the standards. That's why you get woman right into the transformed wife and asking her, hey, did marital rape happen? Because they don't have any outside source to get another opinion. They have these people they follow on social media to tell them what their interpretation of the truth is, rather than able to go to a wider community and get the help that they need, and not realize, yes, you are being abused, you were assaulted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that you really hit on the piece of it to me that seems the most dangerous too. And this is the case across social media. It's not just trad wives, it's any trend,
Yeah.
it's fitness influencers, it's everything else.
Yeah.
But with the trad wives too, it's presenting a very difficult to achieve idealized image of a lifestyle that is not realistic, that is not attainable, even for the people who are privileged enough to be performing this online. They're not even living that lifestyle. And other people who don't have near that amount of privilege are certainly not going to be able to live up to that. And if they're believing that this is going to be the source of their value as a human being, it's setting them up to never be successful at achieving that value as a human being. And I find that very, very sad for them. And it's just unrealistic. And it sets up this competition too. I feel like, as we were speaking earlier about, why would women be participating in this and doing these kind of anti-feminist things? I don't know. I suppose if you are led to believe that this is how you have to be, and you're not allowed to work outside of the home, although these people are working. They're in their house, but they're engaging in paid labor. But if you think that your social status has to come, and your economic and financial stability has to come from your marriage to a man, and you believe that men only want women who can fulfill this very narrow idealized role, that kind of sets up a competition or a race to the bottom with women who want to achieve that status. The only way they can do it is to compete with each other to be, I don't know, the quietest,
the best
and the most
trad wife there is.
It's a serious catch-22. It's dog chasing its tail in that regard. It's really and it's really hard to. It seems like it's really hard to overcome it. And again, I want to read from this study. It does not appear, however, from this analysis that religious institutions as currently structured provide a pathway for amelioration of women's unequal status. Even if in hard times religious organizations offer women solace and some material support, the net effect on women's well-being would appear to be negative based on the empirical results presented in this paper. I mean, you're basically saying, well, if you'll only just do it the biblical way, or according to according to the scriptures, according to whatever scriptures they may be, if you'll only do it this way, we'll have peace in society and you'll have a benefit. But at what cost to the individual involved? At what cost to their own sense of self-worth, to their own sense of being? And if your sense of self-worth has to be dependent on somebody else's success, and if you're not good enough to provide the bedrock of that success, that puts you in a terrible position of self-loathing, it seems to me, that you don't value yourself as an intelligent actor in society.
Yeah, and not to mention the point that was made, I think, earlier in the chat about some women are not able to have children, even if they wanted to.
Yes.
And if that's the only source of value that you have access to, well, I guess you're out of luck. I mean,
And you know what?
Nothing for people. Yeah.
It also creates, like, you have seen the competition that you were mentioning before. I have seen these kind of situations where it's women, the ones that who goes into other women's pages just to say, "Oh, I will never do anything like this. I'm not like these women who paint their nails or wear makeup or drink water." I guess too. I have seen that. Like, it becomes very toxic, and it's a competition, like Stephanie says, to the bottom.
Or we're having discussions.
Like the story of the
well, no, I was just gonna.
I'm sorry.
Finish your thought, Alma. I'm interrupting you. I'm being rude. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Even from the beginning of the religion, the marriage of Jacob to his several wives. One of them, the poor woman, was birthing kid after kid, and every time every single kid was born, said, "Oh, maybe this time he will love me." And she gave birth like 7 of them, and she never was the loved one.
That's really depressing.
That is sad. I was just commenting because, like, you were saying, like, I'm not the type of woman that paints my nails or makeup, or we're having an opposite discussion about, like, how to wear clothing in a biblical way, how to wear makeup in a biblical way. I'm like, listen, motherfuckers, like, stop trying to apply Bronze Age ideas in the modern time. Like, just please stop it, because those women were not concerned about, am I wearing makeup in a way that will make God happy? Like, Trixie Mattel put this really well. She said, one woman has ever driven up to an altar and walk around and go, what eyeliner would God find? What eyeliner would God find, not sinful? Like, nobody thinks like this except weird people. Because but that's the mental gymnastics that people have to do to make the Bible fit into the modern context, or any other religious, even if you're living, if the traditions are of the ancestors, what did my ancestors want for me, living now, and those traditions that follow through. It's not just, it's this idea of this, not just in religion, but just in the societal structures that have some kind of myth or folklore around them that bring forth a sort of societal structure that you're supposed to follow, when really we're a collection of individuals that should be able to make decisions for ourselves, that as long as you're not harming anybody else. That's what a progressive society does. But a lot of these ideas are just traditions that people are trying to preserve to make themselves feel safe, and then everything's in order, and we're honoring our family and our loved ones, the traditions that they followed. Because if you go off if you go off the track and do your own thing, you're like, well, you're not following the tradition, and then a society will crumble and bad things.
People are always saying that about, have you noticed the threat of society crumbling seems to come up every time someone gets a new set of rights. If women get the vote, society will crumble. If we end slavery, society will crumble. If women get birth control, society will crumble.
Yeah,
And here we still are. We're still here. Weird how
we're
that
still
happened.
maintaining laws and order, order in society. Like, crime rates are down, from, even a couple decades ago, like we are progressing, and yeah, there's still economic, hardships. Like, yeah, we get that because, rich people suck. But for the most part, when people have more freedoms and their ability to have upward mobility, things tend to get better. Weird.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you'd want over half the population to be full participants in every aspect of what society has to offer. That there are more opportunities for achievement if you've got everybody pulling together rather than othering a whole category of citizens, a whole category of people. Seems a little bit Bronze Age,
I wonder why.
Mhm. I wanted to take a sec to remind the audience to check out our other shows on Skeptic Haven. Tuesdays, Secular Soapbox. Thursdays, The Sunny Spot. Saturday, The Global Atheists. And this show, Women Atheists Unload. And Let's Talk on Sunday. So do it. And like, subscribe, do the things, all the things, smash the buttons, do all that stuff. So are we, where do we go now? Church? I don't think so.
I had a
Don't
I
take
have
me
a
to
question
church.
for y'all. Yeah, not at church. What do y'all think that women and people who support women could do to better support one another, given all of the things we've discussed today? What could women do for each other?
I think we need to stop competing with each other and judging one another for not fulfilling some sort of idealized versions. I think that the way that religion and the capitalist structure, especially if you live in the West, has set it up that we're constantly competing with one another. We constantly judge other women for the same misogynistic ideas that have been implanted in us from the society that come from religion. We don't lift each other up as much as we should. We don't support women who, might be in a higher position than us, instead of saying like, wow, that's great that you achieved that. We judge other women for achieving that. Or what we do is like, there's still this attitude of like, if a woman gets any sort of success, she did a sexual favor to get it. And that is sexism
Exactly.
and misogyny talking. And that's been ingrained in us. And we have to get those toxic ideas out of each other. So we're supporting each other because that's what they want. They like, if that's what misogyny does, it tries to pit not only men against women, but women against women and queer people and people of color. Like, everybody's in a fucking competition instead of just being like, instead of just saying, instead of admiring one another for our accomplishments and the things that we like about, that we wish we could more integrate into ourselves, we tend to want to pit. And they don't know how to distinguish. Like, you can be a little bit jealous, that's fine, but don't let that jealousy turn into toxicity towards one another.
Yeah, I think it's very important to stop the competition with each other, and with also being more accepting, like Helen said, because I have seen people that are angry, like they see a picture of a trans person and say, "Oh, well, she probably had done a surgery, so that's why she's so pretty." And they make comments so weirdly strange. They're like, "Are you mad? Are you mad at them just because they're like they are?" And yeah, but it is that we have to start seeing that in ourselves, to see the internalized misogyny that sometimes we have, that every time that we try to break down another woman just because we're a little envious, what we're doing is actually supporting all the ideas they're saying about us too. Even when we think that it's not going to apply to us, yes, it is going to be applied to us, even if we don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think we the internalized misogyny is reflective of the way we were raised, and the society that we operate in, and maybe it's time to smash the mold. Maybe it's time to just smash the mold entirely. Be outspoken. Be willing to elect women to positions of power. Promote women in positions of power. To advance the participation of women in the workplace, and advance the position of women and wherever there's an opportunity to move women forward. That's what we need to start doing. Start breaking the mold, I think, and push back on the trad. This is not the only way you can achieve. The only way you can achieve something here by surrendering to some idealized form of the ideological oppression that's held us down for centuries. I mean, maybe we do need to, maybe we need to stop thinking of Simone de Beauvoir as Jean-Paul Sartre's love interest, and really read The Second Sex, and really read what was said there, because it's as valid as it ever has been.
Isn't there some hypothesis out there that she wrote one of his exams for him, or helped him pass his exams with such high marks that she kind of tutored him, but ended up getting less credit?
Einstein's first wife got Einstein felt guilty about her contributions to his one of his Nobel Prizes, and gave her the money. So there you go. But all right, but that's not the same as recognition, is it? I mean, that's not the same. It's like everyone today acknowledges that Rosalind Franklin's work in DNA was responsible for the discovery of, at least largely, a huge contribution to the discovery of the structure of the DNA molecule, but a little bit late.
But also too, like, we need to, and I'm not going to go on my attack of education rant, because that's a different show. But I do want to point out that if this had been taught as part of regular education, we wouldn't be finding out about it now. This should have been taught from the beginning in schools, that, the both, regardless of gender, what contributions people made to the society that we live in, to science, to technology, to, to social change, to, the social sciences, whatever, like all the things, people. We need to stop trying to be like, well, again, you're the neck that turns man's head. It's like, no, just be your own head. Just, yes. We should be honoring people for having their own minds and their contributions to society, instead of, just patting ourselves on the back for being able to influence a man. Which is dumb anyway, because that also is also sexist. Don't be sexist against men either.
Such a gross concept.
I know,
Every time
it's
someone
gross, isn't
describes
it?
that, I'm like picturing in
Yes.
my mind this grotesque situation with people's bodies stitched together. I hate that be the neck that turns the head. What do you mean?
I
I'm
just
a
think of like
complete body.
bloodbending from
Like,
Avatar. If anyone that's seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, there one of the main characters, Katara, is able to bloodbend and make people move, and it's fucking creepy. Like she learns it from this, traumatized woman that has a lot of hate in her. But it's one of those things, like when you see it, it's like, oh no. And it's like mind manipulation and stuff. And that's just how cults have it.
that sounds terrifying.
I know. It's
So a week from today at this time, in this segment here on Skeptic Haven, we'll be having hosting a fundraiser for Black non-believers, and I think Mendiza is going to be here. I forget. I think Cynthia and maybe Maya Atkinson, Cynthia McDonald, maybe Maya, and I'm not sure if anybody else is going to be here. But I just thought I'd bring that up. So there's something we can do, is support organizations that take a skeptical outlook, direct our support and our enthusiasm towards people who are doing the work to smash the mold, to break the chains that society's set upon us. Also, yeah, I lost my train of thought. Somebody else picking. I lost my train of thought. It'll come back though.
The main thing is, don't be a jerk.
Get a super chat.
We do?
We did, yes.
Oh, Robin Webster, thank you so much. Love the panel. Thank you so much for your $5 contribution. Very much appreciated. Very much appreciated. Where was
All
I?
right. So, do we have any final thoughts other than smash patriarchy?
And don't be a jerk.
And don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk.
Also, I'll give a final thought. If you have been affected by any of the things we've talked about here and have been questioning your beliefs, or have just had difficulty, you need to feel like you need to recover from some things you might have encountered in a religious community or faith that you grew up in, or just in society in general being affected by it, there is an organization for you. It's called Recovering from Religion, and we have helplines available. We have support groups, online communities. We can even help you get in touch with professional mental health care providers. So check out recoveringfromreligion.org. We also have a Monday evening program called RFRX Talks that you can come hang out with us at. Helen and I are there kind of a lot.
Yeah.
So, that is all.
That's plenty, and thank you so much for pointing that out, because RFR is definitely a wonderful organization that does a lot of good work. Yeah, and we've got BajaCon coming up in Ontario. I don't even know where Sarnia Point is, but Edward, Ontario, that's coming up on the 9th through the 11th. Some great speakers. I see Seth Andrews, Abby Carfer, Megan Lewis, the lovely Megan Lewis, and a whole bunch of people that, if you happen to be in Canada or happen to be around the area, or would like to be, maybe you could start making plans now to make that happen. Also, let's not forget the people that support this channel. Our patrons: Erica Zoles, Ryan, Deneen Murphy, Dan D, Michael Weissman, Cindy Plaza, Sonny Shell, Aaron Colson, Phil Calderon, Amanda McLeod, and Logan Fisher. So yeah, thanks to them, and if you'd like to become a patron of Skeptic Haven, I'm sure there's room for you too. So thanks, everybody. I guess that's I think we've had a good conversation here. Covered a few things, and I never did find the rest of the train of my thought, but
You'll remember it after we sign off.
Yeah, I will. I'll
Yeah.
remember it. I'll remember it the minute we sign off.
That means you'll have to come back next week, and people will have to come back and look forward to you sharing
Yeah.
it.
Maybe not next week, but maybe sometime soon. Maybe some other place. Anyway.
I know you told your friend you're not okay. And tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long.